Just a Bit of Paper, the programme about the stamp auction.
This autumn on 2 brings a chance to see a new season of films starring Doris Day. Some of the humour.
What do you want, Calamity?
There's a stage you're leaving at noon tomorrow. Be on it.
Some of the songs.
I'm ready, willing, and able. And honey, now it's up to you. Okay, said I, whatever will be, will be.
And some of her men.
It was just one of those nights.
Frank Sinatra, Richard Harris,
Just one of
Cary
those
Grant,
fabulous
Clark Gable, Howard Keel.
Take me back to the Black Hills of Dakota.
James Garner,
I helped a lady become pregnant.
Rock Hudson,
Will you kindly keep your big fat nose out of my business?
and David Niven.
Stop that!
Great entertainment in a season of films starring Doris Day, starting with Calamity Jane tomorrow at 6:50.
We return to our published times in 10 minutes with the book programme, which includes a studio discussion between writers and authors. That's after the mid-evening news with Kenneth Kendall.
A letter bomb sent to Labour MP Frank Allorne has been discovered at the House of Commons. The letter bomb, which contained petrol and an igniting device, was in a padded envelope delivered to Mr. Allorne's office, and the police believe there could be others. The letter was originally sent to Mr. Allorne's home in Manchester and was readdressed by his wife. He explained to David Koss why she was uneasy about it.
Well, it looked suspicious. And she phoned me saying that she had sent it on to me in London as I requested. And when I examined it this morning, I opened it. There was sellotape round the end. I opened it and inside there were wires. And naturally I was a little bit cautious, so I handed it over to the police. They handed it over to the bomb squad, and that's all I know about it.
The packet was delivered to Mr. Allorne at 8:45 this morning at his office in the Palace of Westminster. Mr. Allorne's suspicions were confirmed when he saw wires protruding from its side. The packet is a 5-inch by 9-inch padded envelope, with Mr. Allorne's home address written in ink on it. The postmark is indecipherable. The device inside is believed to have consisted of a small plastic tube of lighter fuel attached to an igniter. Commander Peter Duffy, head of Scotland Yard's anti-terrorist branch, has taken charge of inquiries. No motive has yet been discovered, but a Scotland Yard spokesman has warned that there might be similar packages being sent to other prominent people.
Leaders of 2 million engineering workers have accepted a single-figure pay rise. The offer of just over 8% was agreed to reluctantly at a meeting of the Amalgamated Engineering Workers Union National Committee. The union's president, Mr. Terry Duffy, said they recognised the difficulties the industry was in. The agreement showed that their workers were now more interested in protecting their jobs than pushing for increased pay. The overtime ban threatening the mini-metro's production has been called off. Representatives of 22,000 white-collar staff at BL have reached a compromise with the management over compulsory redundancies. 2,500 workers at Toshiba's, Redruth and Plymouth television factories are to be made redundant. Toshiba, the area's largest industrial employer, decided on the move after the Rank organisation pulled out of the joint venture earlier this month. A report by Chris Denham.
Only a few hundred jobs will be saved out of a total workforce in Plymouth and Redruth of nearly 3,000. The Toshiba Corporation said today they'd be taking over the Plymouth factory to continue the manufacture of colour televisions, but this would mean a massive reduction in the number of staff. 700 more would be made redundant at the firm's plant in Cornwall. The news came less than a month after the Rank-Toshiba partnership broke up, with Rank saying it faced losses of up to £25 million on its television plant. High-level talks in London and Japan have failed to save the company. Tonight, West Country MPs, led by Dr. David Owen, are due to meet the Industry Secretary Sir Keith Joseph. They'll be pressing for more aid to the southwest, where unemployment is now well above the national average.
The government is to create 2 more enterprise zones where concessions in taxation and controls will be used to attract new industry at Corby and Dudley in the Midlands, and another one is to be announced soon in the north of England. The news was given by the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sir Geoffrey Howe, during a debate in the Commons on unemployment. But there was a shock for the government when Conservative right-winger Mr. Nicholas Winterton lashed out in a 15-minute speech against his own party's economic strategy. Mr. Winterton said tens of thousands of people were losing their jobs because of what he called the government's insensitive and inflexible policies. There were no new candidates for the Labour Party leadership when nominations closed an hour and a half ago. All 4 contenders were at Labour's London headquarters for a joint meeting of the National Executive and the Shadow Cabinet. Labour's deputy leader, Michael Foot, said he was optimistic about his chances, although he thought it an exaggeration to suggest he was favourite. Dennis Healey, the Shadow Chancellor, is generally considered the leading contender. Mr. John Silkin, the Shadow Industry Secretary, and Shadow Foreign Secretary, Mr. Peter Shaw, complete the list of contenders. In Morocco, senior government officials say they're horrified by reports that the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh are unhappy over the arrangements for their state visit. It has been admitted that there have been failures in organisation, though Buckingham Palace says the Queen and the Duke are perfectly content and delays do occur. Yesterday, the Queen was kept waiting in the desert by King Hassan, with lunch being served 2 hours late. Then the Queen and her staff seemed puzzled as to what would happen next, though the Queen sat patiently by. Today, the royal party have moved to Casablanca, and the King has made every effort to keep things running more smoothly.
King and Queen made the 3-hour journey from Marrakech to Casablanca by train. It had been unclear until the last minute whether the King would be on board. A British embassy spokesman said just before they left, "We're not sure what the programme is," and his Moroccan government counterpart said, "We never know what His Majesty the King will do." In the event, the 2 monarchs breakfasted during the journey, and we were told were never out of each other's company. After a stroll down Platform 1, covered with hundreds of oriental carpets, they faced a reception outside and on their drive through Casablanca that exceeded anything on this tour. A holiday had been declared, and a Moroccan official said, "We want to make Her Majesty feel welcome."
The Foreign Secretary, Lord Carrington, has ended his visit to Hungary with talks with János Kadar, the Communist Party leader. They agreed that the labour problems in Poland were a matter for the Poles to solve themselves. Lord Carrington has now flown to Warsaw. He is the first leading Western politician to visit Poland since the trade union unrest began in August. A leading British yachtsman, Angus Primrose, is missing and presumed drowned after being swept overboard from his yacht off the east coast of America. An air and sea rescue operation began near Charleston after a naval vessel came across a life raft carrying a woman, the only crew member aboard Mr. Primrose's ocean racer Demon of Hamble. She said the 52-year-old yachtsman had disappeared when they were hit by a severe storm. The search has now been called off. Brush fires in California have threatened parts of Los Angeles. Driven by 40-mile-an-hour winds, the smoke and flames spread rapidly over suburbs lying in 2 canyons east of the city, endangering an area of nearly 800 acres. 300 firemen were called out. A number of people had to be evacuated and their houses hosed down. The cause is reported to be sparks from high-tension wires. And now the main points of the news again, with subtitles for the hard of hearing. A letter bomb has been found in the House of Commons addressed to the Labour MP Frank Allorn. The letter bomb, which contained petrol and an igniting device, was in a padded envelope delivered to Mr. Allorn's office. Police think similar devices may be on their way to other prominent people. Toshiba, the Japanese electronics firm, are to make 2,500 people redundant at 2 television plants in the West Country. Toshiba, the area's largest industrial employer, decided on the move after the rank organization pulled out of a joint venture. A pay rise in single figures has been accepted on behalf of 2 million engineering workers. The employer's offer of just over 8% was accepted reluctantly today by a meeting of the National Committee of the Amalgamated Engineering Workers Union. Mr. Terry Duffy, their president, said the agreement reflected the fact that rather than push for increased pay, workers were now more interested in protecting their jobs. The government is to create 2 more enterprise zones where concessions in taxation and controls will be used to attract industry. They are at Corby and Dudley in the Midlands, with a third to be announced later in the north of England. Nominations for the Labour Party leadership election closed just over an hour ago, with Mr. Foote, Mr. Healy, Mr. Shaw and Mr. Silkin, the 4 declared candidates. Well, that's all from me. Newsnight tonight will be at 10:45.
And now a look at the weather. It will be a cold night with a fairly widespread frost inland, and some fog patches may form later, which will be slow to clear in the morning. Tomorrow most places will be dry with some sunshine, although a few showers are possible near the east coast at first, and in the west it will become cloudier, with perhaps a little rain in the far southwest in the evening. Temperatures will be similar to today's, but winds will be much lighter. And that's the weather. On BBC1 shortly, Dennis Weaver finds himself in pursuit of the man in a full Toledo, tonight's case for Sergeant Dan Stone. Here on 2, we make our weekly excursion into the literary world in the book programme introduced by Robert Robinson. The subject, Shaw the Lover, previously planned for tonight, has been postponed until next week in order to accommodate the current controversy on the subject of plagiarism.
Martin Amis. Goodbye.
Tonight at 9:25 on 2, the start of a major new drama series, Oppenheimer, the story of the American known as the father of the atomic bomb. Loved and hated, his abilities as scientist and leader inspired great loyalty, but his radical beliefs later led to his downfall.
I can't understand it. An intelligent man like you mixed up in all this communistic left-wing garbage.
What do you think would happen to you if you joined the party, huh? What are you afraid of? You'd only, for God's sake, be putting the rest of you where your mouth is.
Okay, you read the new work from Europe. On fission? Sure. And you realize its implications. Obviously. Yeah, a weapon. A frightful weapon.
A possibility of one.
Yeah, okay, even that. But what are we gonna do about it?
You'll do something big. I know.
Clairvoyant?
Judge of men.
If the Japs controlled the whole Pacific, and if the Germans took all of Russia, and all of Asia, and Africa too, and we had this bomb, we would still win the war.
Sam Waterston stars as Oppenheimer, starting tonight at 9:25 in the new season on BBC2.
I feel we've got blood on our hands.
Now on 2, we continue this evening with the return of another new series, Chronicle, which tonight transports us beneath the waves to the Solent Mud, which is the present resting place of the wreck of the Mary Rose.